You've been looking at shifting baselines. What does that mean?
What that means is that what we perceive as being natural nowadays is not necessarily what used to be natural. So if you think about a fisherman nowadays, he may remember a kind of past event, past history where there were more fish in the sea. If you go back to his father, he may remember a little bit more, and if you go back to the grandfather, they may remember the very big fish that used to be in our coastal seas. So when we first started commercially fishing, it wasn't unusual to land quite large fish, sometimes even 200-pounders.
So does that mean that our expectations change when we're looking to what we might think of as the health of the sea and the way we go forward?
Exactly that, yes. And that's what I'm interested in. Is we've been designating marine protected areas in this country, and we tend to take the baselines for those designations as the point at which the legislation came in. So the Habitats Directive, for example, 1992, a lot of our thinking is around the baseline of 1992, and we tend to manage to that date, if you like.
How do you choose which date to go back to? How do you choose what was a good state of seabed?
Well, that's a length of a string sort of question, and conservation managers for years have been arguing about that kind of thing. But what I'm quite fascinated about is the existence of shellfish reefs in our coastal waters. So if you go back to the 1800s, we used to have very, very large oyster reefs. So for example, in the Firth of Forth, there used to be a reef that was 20 miles long by 6 miles wide. There isn't a single live native oyster in the Firth of Forth anymore, and yet we're managing our baselines to more recent history when these hugely important functional habitats used to be in our systems.
So we've just missed out a bit of history. We've forgotten about oysters.
I think so, yeah. And we've been exploring the Dornoch Firth with the Glenmorangie Whisky Company because they're very interested in environmental quality. Now, what we've been doing there is we've taken a blank canvas, if you like. The protected area there is in favourable conservation status. It's managed to 1992 when the Habitats Directive came in, and what we've done is we've gone right back through the literature, we've gone right back through the archaeological records, we've looked at all of the fisheries records, we've looked at everything we can lay our hands on, and then we've gone out and surveyed the shores, and we've surveyed the subtidal, and we looked for evidence of oysters, and we can trace oysters right the way through from the last glaciation, through the Mesolithic, the Neolithic, into the Pictish period, right into the Middle Ages, right through to the reasonably present times, up to the 1800s when we think the oyster fisheries moved in and took out the entire population.
If the oysters are gone, why do we worry? Or is this about, I suppose, restoring habitat back to this point in time?
Well, you could get preoccupied with trying to get sort of like obsessing about natural states. But what I'm more interested in is the lost ecosystem services. So the shellfish reefs that we had in the past, and this is the research that we've been doing on shellfish reefs that we still have, like horse mussel beds. If you look at that kind of evidence, it seems that those sort of habitats, because they're more complex, because they're sucking down all the energy onto the seabed, they're like pelagic benthic pumps. They're sucking the energy out of the water column, they're putting it onto the seabed. There's more nursery habitats in those kind of habitats. There's more water quality improving filtration going on, and there's more deposition, there's more putting down of carbon onto the seafloor, more carbon sequestration. So there's potentially quite a lot of societal benefits that can be gained from reintroducing these biodiversity hotspots. I think we're in danger of a dereliction of ambition in that we're managing protected areas for present-day scenarios when in fact we could have systems that are far more biodiverse and also far more productive and far more valuable to society.